From WEAU-TV Eau Claire, this is NewsCenter 13 at 10 with Cindy Schott and Mike Rindo. Weather with meteorologist Don Moldenhauer and Bob Brainerd with sports.
Well, I think in my position I have to go up there and try and tell the people that there is a tomorrow. We're going to get up in the morning. And we will do whatever we can.
The expression of Darrell Weckens sets the mood of today's surprise announcement of the shutdown of Eau Claire's Uniroyal-Goodrich plant.
Good evening. Eau Claire's largest private employer, the Uniroyal-Goodrich plant, announced it plans to close down.
Plant manager John Annefeld made the announcement that will affect 1,300 workers. The closure will be in two stages in July of this year. Radial tire production will end, affecting 500 jobs. Then in 1992, the bias ply line of tires will shut down. NewsCenter 13's Jamie Bohl has details of the plant's closing.
The news hit with the weight of the old brick building itself. An early afternoon press conference marking the beginning of the end for an Eau Claire legend.
Unfortunately, we're the oldest plant, even though we are a strong plant. When you make a consideration to do that, that was one of the factors that impacted the decision.
Other main factors were a tire glut, slow car sales, and an even slower economy. The plant ironically became a victim of her own productivity. Uniroyal-Goodrich had too much supply for its demand. It's an inventory surplus the plant had in the past dealt with through shutdown weeks. Plant managers say it only slowed the bleeding.
We know the economy has not been real good, and we knew there was some overcapacity in Uniroyal-Goodrich. We didn't realize it to this extent.
Darrell Wecken, the local union boss, knew nothing of the closure before today. He was understandably feeling emotions ranging from anger to sadness. Late this afternoon, he had the unenviable task of talking to those he's represented for years.
Well, I think we feel a lot of things, but I think we have to take one day at a time. We will sit down with the company and get the facts a little bit straighter in the days ahead. Whether anything can be done to avert this or not, at this point, we don't know.
There were rumors in the past of possibilities, and maybe we were close to shutting the plant down, but because of things that we were able to do, we were successful in keeping the plant going. Unfortunately, those opportunities don't exist today.
Rumors have had this old plant on her deathbed for years. The age of her walls, the economics of the time, all working against her. Employees said all along they just wanted to know for sure. Today they found out. It wasn't the news they wanted to hear. Today they found out the old brick lady gave in. Jamie Bohl, NewsCenter 13.
With today's announcement, Eau Claire and Chippewa counties have joined the rest of the nation in dealing with America's latest recession. With close to 1,400 workers being laid off at Uniroyal by 1992, the combined Chippewa and Eau Claire County manufacturing workforce will drop off by a substantial 14%.
I would say that things will be extremely difficult for the next couple years, and then we will begin a slow and steady growth back to the level of employment.
Uniroyal officials cited a soft tire market as the main reason Uniroyal will shut down. During the fourth quarter, General Motors, which supplies a large amount of business to Eau Claire, reported huge losses. Today's news had leaders from Governor Thompson on down scrambling to somehow find ways to remedy the situation.
And it doesn't look like it will be an easy task. NewsCenter 13's Judy Clark has more.
We are still first and foremost going to try and get the company to reverse its decision. Whether or not that's possible, I can't tell you at this point in time.
Decision to close the plant, however, is irreversible according to company officials. So our concern, therefore, is where do we go from here?
The governor of Wisconsin and the city manager of Eau Claire. Their comments may differ, but their goals are the same: to assist the 1,300 workers who have just lost their living.
There's already a meeting called up in Eau Claire, and I've asked my Secretary of Development, Bob Trunzel, to be there, as well as the individual from the Department of Industry, Labor, and Human Relations that handles the workers' dislocation program.
That meeting is scheduled for later this week. In the meantime, the city has activated the Community Plant Closing Task Force, which will help in getting state and federal funds for retraining workers.
I think our first concern has to be to assist those people that need and desire retraining to get that retraining and to provide whatever services we can in that situation for them.
3 years ago, the city negotiated with Uniroyal in efforts to keep the plant open for at least 3 years. That agreement is up in April. It offered a $2 million loan and a $920,000 federal grant.
That fund, those EDA funds have not been dispersed. Those are the funds we would like to have transferred into retraining at this point. The city loan is going to be repaid on or about the middle of April.
City officials have some hope that by working together, the community can survive this devastating situation, and maybe in time it will. But today, at least, it doesn't soften the blow. Judy Clark, NewsCenter 13.
Wisconsin Senator Robert Kasten says he wants to reach out and help those workers who will soon be out of work. Kasten says his first and foremost concern is with the families and the uncertainty they face in the near future. The senator says he has contacted the U.S. Department of Commerce to figure out what assistance is available for employees.
And coming up following our 10 o'clock report, we'll extend our coverage on the Uniroyal-Goodrich plant closing. Our coverage will include how one area family is dealing with the knowledge that they will be out of work. We'll also have a roundtable discussion with Eau Claire City Manager Eric Anderson, State Representative David Zine, and Rubber Workers Union President Darrell Wecken.
Its demise has been the subject of speculation for years.
The age of the plant and the demand-supply factors within the industry, the Eau Claire plant does look as though it may be living on borrowed time.
Even last month, after a 3-week inventory adjustment shutdown was announced, no one saw it coming.
Well, I've been there for 23 years. That's all I've heard is rumors for 23 years, so it isn't much change. I guess we'll always hear them. So
We feel as secure, I guess, this year at this time as we did last year at this time.
But today, the shocking announcement that Eau Claire's largest private employer, the Uniroyal-Goodrich Tire Plant, is shutting down.
I regret to inform you that the company announced today its plans to close the Eau Claire Tire Plant.
The announcement means 1,350 people will lose their jobs between now and mid-1992, striking a devastating blow to the economy of a community many say already has too many low-paying jobs.
Good evening once again. Shocking, even numbing, may be the best way to describe the effect of today's announcement.
During the next half hour, we'll be examining the many aspects of the Uniroyal-Goodrich plant shutdown. The impact is not easily put into perspective because the loss of the area's largest industry will have far-reaching implications none of us has yet imagined.
We'll be focusing on the reasons behind the shutdown, how one family will be affected, and why this is bad news for an economy already lacking manufacturing jobs.
We begin tonight with Jamie Bohl, who has spent the day covering the story since it very first broke.
Jamie, this was a well-kept secret. It doesn't seem like anyone outside of the Uniroyal management knew this was coming.
No, the city, the workers, the union people, no one seemed to know anything that was going on, that this was even in the works. We had rumors, of course, for a very long time, and I guess we all knew it was going to maybe happen one of these days. We didn't want to believe it would happen, and it's all proved to be one of the longest days in Eau Claire's history. January 8th, 1991 started just like every day for Uniroyal's first shift employees. Inside the aging walls, workers were cranking out tires. Nothing was different. Oh, how life would change in the next few hours.
I can't comment on it because I don't know the specific situation.
Earlier in the morning, Uniroyal-Goodrich executives flew in from Akron. By 10:30, city officials and union members knew the UG brass wasn't in town for a social call.
We found out the news today at a 10 o'clock meeting that was called at the executive board at the company in a conference room from Lloyd Spalder and one of the corporate executives.
Plant manager John Annefeld gave management side in an afternoon press conference. He said the plant would close in 2 phases, 500 employees being let go in July of this year, the remaining 800 about a year later.
We were advised by the Vice President of Manufacturing this morning that as far as he knew, there was nothing that any of us could do in order to turn the decision around because it's a matter of overcapacity.
By 3 o'clock, the first shifters were heading home. Their faces wore the heavy burden of the day's news. Months and years of rumor had all at once become fact.
Any idea what's coming?
Well, there's not a lot of sadness yet. Some, of course, but it's hard to tell, and it hasn't really settled in yet.
Well, I think in my position I have to go up there and try and tell the people that there is a tomorrow. We're going to get up in the morning.
Plant officials say management's final decision didn't rest on the workforce, it rested on the workplace. Being the oldest plant in the Uniroyal chain, they said they had no choice.
There were rumors in the past of possibilities, and maybe we were close to shutting the plant down, but because of things that we were able to do, we were successful in keeping the plant going. Unfortunately, those opportunities don't exist today.
And they definitely ran out today. I guess this whole deal, it's probably been in the works for months, I'm sure, in the management of Uniroyal-Goodrich and Akron. The final decision, as far as we can tell, was only finalized on Friday, and they came to Eau Claire today to tell everyone here in Eau Claire the bad news.
This plant has often been cited for an excellent workforce. A lot of improvements have been made over the years, talking to keep it competitive, concessions made. Is there any feel of betrayal, rather, on the part of those who made those concessions?
Oh, I'm sure there has to be. I don't know how you couldn't. I mean, you've worked that hard, and you've really kept this plant open longer than its life was probably, that it could really handle, I think. That this plant was outdated years ago, but the workforce did what they had to do to keep it open. And I don't think the management at Akron would argue if they could move the workforce here to a new plant and everything would work out for them. I'm sure they'd do it in a minute. The workforce is that good here.
It's always like human nature to look for a scapegoat. Now, Michelin just purchased Uniroyal. The deal was finalized late last summer. Mm-hmm. Is there finger pointing? Are they blaming Michelin or are they blaming Uniroyal for this?
The final decision, they say, was made by Uniroyal-Goodrich. It was their decision. It was their people that flew in. They handled the whole thing. Michelin apparently had nothing to do with it, but I think you also have to look at Michelin is facing a $560 million operating loss in 1990. So, I don't know how they didn't have some say in it. I'm sure they did, but the final decision rested with Uniroyal-Goodrich, and they made the final call.
Thanks, Jamie. Well, today's announcement has everyone wondering what's next.
And when we return, we'll talk with three people who will have a lot to say on how to determine just that. Now that the decision to close the plant has been made, what can be done?
That question is sure to keep the United Rubber Workers Union local and state officials very busy in the coming months. Well, tonight we've assembled a panel of guests to discuss that and other questions relating to that shutdown. They include Darrell Wecken, who's the president of the local Rubber Workers Union, city manager Eric Anderson, and state representative David Zien. First of all, gentlemen, let's talk about your reaction. Eric.
Well, it's the kind of surprise that comes with a decision like this. The first concern that you have is for the people who are immediately impacted by the decision, the workers in the plant, and how we can move to assist them and help them deal with the situation. The second concern is how we absorb the shock and help them absorb the shock and help the local economy go forward. And that's a regional issue at this point. That's an issue that goes beyond the boundaries of the city of Eau Claire into the whole Chippewa Valley.
This plant closing was something that came as a surprise, but yet I think that a lot of people realize that sometime down the road, someday, Eau Claire Uniroyal-Goodrich is probably going to be out of business. Did you have any contingency plans set up for it?
Well, it comes as a surprise in terms of the timing. It's, as you indicated, it's been talked about for a long time. In terms of contingency planning, the first thing is the plant closing task force. And that is one of the contingency plans in a situation like this. And we moved to that immediately, and that's meeting on Thursday here in Eau Claire, and that involves people from the state, and we hope to have also some federal people involved in that as well to deal with those first issues as to how we soften the blow, how we get training in place so people can be retrained for other jobs. Other contingency plans have been going on for a long time in terms of trying to diversify the local economy, trying to increase the number of jobs in the local economy, making loans, helping businesses get started that may provide, and hopefully we believe will provide, additional manufacturing employment in the future, SSI, and helping companies like Genico and others who have grown, who have added employees, and keeping that effort up is critical.
Dave, there will be a lot of eyes on lawmakers to come up with some funds, to come up with some help for these workers. What do you have plans for that?
It started right at 11 o'clock this morning with the governor's office. I got on the phone immediately in the Department of Development. The biggest thing we can do is the dislocated worker program. We're looking at an instant replay of what happened in Kenosha.
Right.
And if we can do what happened in Kenosha, Kenosha now has one of the stronger economies in the whole state of Wisconsin. Should the dislocated worker program be reactivated as it was then, we're going to be looking okay. I'm very much enthused that there can be some optimism here. There perhaps can be some blessings in disguise.
How so,
And for the
Dave?
governor to put away everything today, all day he put away everything, and he was working on it hard.
So, in other words, how are you saying that it can be a blessing in disguise, though, for these people? How can you tell these workers that?
That's really hard to say.
Yeah.
But with the assessment and the training and pulling all these resources together, the Department of Industry, Labor and Human Relations, Job Service, the private industry councils, pulling together the Department of Development and helping these individuals and their families cope with it and to get new jobs, to get new training, that's what we're going to do with the VTAE system, the university system, everything. Helping them with small business, maybe start a new small business, some free expertise as far as marketing analysis, feasibility studies. We're pulling out all stops.
Now that's down the road, and hopefully that will happen. But Darrell Wecken, you've got guys and women who have been working at Uniroyal for 10, 20, 30, even more years. How are you folks, the United Rubber Workers, viewing this tonight?
Well, certainly it's a shock this morning, as you mentioned before. I came in to work at 7:30, and I had a call to call the plant, and they said they wanted to have a meeting with our negotiating committee or executive board at 10 o'clock. That was the first inkling that we had something was going on of this nature. Now, we know that the economy has not been good, and we look for some changes that would have to be made to tighten our belts up a little the next year or two. We had hoped to get into the mid-90s when we felt if we could survive to that, the economy would come around and with the modernization of the plant, be a viable part of Uniroyal-Goodrich. However, evidently because of the not needed schedule, they felt that it was time to make a move. There again, we've been in contact with the International. We'll have some people in here to be sure that everyone will get and will know what their benefits are. We have not given up hope at this point. The governor's office also called us, and we're glad, and also our other representative from this area, Joe Hiserick, called me, and we're glad that they're all pitching in there. The task force meeting is set up for Thursday. But I don't think our people, like the guy said on TV, is really, the shock is not set in yet. Nobody's out of a job tomorrow. And hopefully with the city plans, if we can't do something with the retraining and things that are available, we will devote all our time and energy toward helping to retrain the people and hopefully get them into some other areas where our contracts may allow them to go to some other places and relocate, and also in the area. I've been born and raised here, and
yeah, you'd like to
we want
stay
to stay
here.
here.
That's the thing I'm wondering about. There are funds available from what we've heard. Even Job Service said that they figure it'll cost about $2.5 million to retrain the workers. But are you optimistic that they, like you, will be able to stay in western Wisconsin in Eau Claire like they'd like to and find as good of a paying job as they had before? That's got to be tough.
Well, that's hard to say.
Yeah.
Certainly, manufacturing jobs like we have, and the price and the hourly scale that we are accustomed to is not available at this time in this area. However, through retraining and education, we feel a certain amount of them are going to be able to stay in this area. Certainly a lot of them are going to have to relocate, and especially if they want to be in manufacturing, find the type of hourly earnings that we've been accustomed to at Uniroyal-Goodrich.
I'll ask you the same thing that I asked Jimmy Bull before. Do you feel betrayed after making all the concessions that you've made and trying to work with the company to keep it here?
Well, I think certainly we do. Certainly we do. The corporate people can come in and tell us how they're remorseful and all that. They can get in the plane and go home. We're the ones that stuck here to face the battles, and the single most devastating thing that you can do outside of a loss of a family member is to lose your income, your job. However, we will work with the people. We feel that we're a proud people, we're good workers, and we will, whether the plant stays open or not, if we can't reach an agreement to do so, we will do our jobs until the day that we're no longer needed. That's the type of people we have at Eau Claire, and I think they'll air a few frustrations and do their job as normal.
Eric, Eau Claire, the city of Eau Claire had such a commitment, it seemed, to Uniroyal. They loaned it a significant amount of money, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people wondering, couldn't we have stopped this somehow? Couldn't we have seen it coming and done something to prevent it?
Well, the council did make a loan of $2 million to Uniroyal as part of the now expiring contract, this 3-year contract, and with the union and with management here in the plant worked out an agreement that the plant would stay open for 3 years, and that was the result of a series of discussions. In this particular situation, there were no discussions. As Darrell pointed out and somewhat earlier, decision looks like it was made last Friday and it was announced, and that was it. And there was no opportunity to discuss or negotiate or approach them in any way, shape, or form.
So as a city official, you too must feel betrayed.
There's no question about it. There's no question about it. I think Darrell's point again was a good one. They can come and they can step off the plane and make their announcement and feel bad and get on the plane and go back. But we have a very large problem that we have to now wrestle with, and I think the whole region has to wrestle with it. It's not just the Uniroyal workers. We're all in the problem, and we're all going to have to pitch in and put our shoulders to the wheel and try and solve these problems.
Indeed.
Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Now, as Representative Zine said a little while ago, this is not the first time a Wisconsin city has seen its major industry close. Kenosha lost thousands of jobs in 1988 when Chrysler closed its auto plant there.
During NewsCenter 13 at 6, we talked with Governor Tommy Thompson about the steps that the state will take to help ease the blow Eau Claire's economy is certain to suffer.
Sad. I'm sad for the people, the employees especially, and of course the people from all over the Eau Claire area. We thought 2 years ago when the talk was closing Uniroyal that we were able to reach an agreement with the union, the management, the parent company, and the state of Wisconsin all participating. And I was really optimistic that Uniroyal was going to continue for many years. And it was very saddened when I heard this morning that one of the vice presidents flew in and made the announcement.
Similar situation happened in Kenosha with the Chrysler plant, and the state came through with assistance. Any chance of that happening here in Eau Claire?
Oh, there's no question about it. The state is willing to help. What kind of assistance at this point is premature to say, Cindy, because we are still first and foremost going to try and get the company to reverse its decision. Whether or not that's possible, I can't tell you at this point in time. But we've got many calls into the company. Secretary Trunzel and who was the Secretary of Department of Development, myself have both placed calls to the president of the company and asked them to reconsider. They have not seen fit yet to get back to us. I expect a call to come back from them sometime either this evening yet or sometime tomorrow. There's already a meeting called up in Eau Claire, and I've asked my Secretary of Development, Bob Trunzel, to be there, as well as the individual from the Department of Industry, Labor, and Human Relations that handles the workers' dislocation program, June Suling.
Now, while much of the talk will be on the big economic impact, the biggest impact will be on the families of the workers themselves.
Our NewsCenter 13's Rob Krybeck talked with one family tonight, a family wondering about their future.
It's been a good plant. It's a good workforce.
Dwayne Geisler feels like he's aged 10 years in the last 10 hours. He is one of nearly 1,400 casualties caused by today's announcement that Uniroyal is closing.
Expected it. However, when it actually happens, it still hits pretty hard. It's like a part of you, almost like a death.
Dwayne has punched a time clock at the tire plant 5 days a week for the past 26 years. But 18 months from now, he will walk out of the place for the last time.
Well, I've talked with friends and fellow workers, and I haven't been job hunting since I was 23 years old. I don't know what that's going to be like. Hopefully there'll be some jobs there, some decent paying jobs. I know there's jobs out there $4 and $5 an hour. To me, that's a disgrace.
Dwayne, at age 49, is not anxious to embark on a new career. It will not be easy to relocate. His wife has a job here, they own a home, and have a son in school. But he realizes they may have to move to make ends meet.
I don't like the idea very much, but if need be, I will do that. I'm afraid that if you want any job that's going to pay any fair wage for a fair day's work, that's what you're going to have to do.
For a man who invested more than half his life at that plant, this is not how Dwayne envisioned it would all end, with him pondering his future and us writing an obituary to his past.
I appreciate the days and years that we've had. I hate to see it come to an end.
When we return, I'll look to the future of Eau Claire without Uniroyal.
3 years ago, Eau Claire's economy seemed destined for new heights.
The town was abuzz with news that Supercomputer Systems Incorporated would locate in Eau Claire with a promise of hundreds of jobs and millions of dollars. But since then, the region's manufacturing base has had a rocky road. The first rumblings of troubles began just a little more than a year ago. In the fall of 1989, Fear Concrete sold out and shut down. The firm was bought by a Marathon County firm. Workers were fired, many rehired, but with no union. Eau Claire's Land O'Lakes plant also changed hands in late '89. Some workers retained their jobs, but the waves of uncertainty were beginning to form.
We can, of course, continue our efforts, and we can keep the problem in perspective. We're talking about 3 companies, but we're talking about 360 jobs in a much larger economy. We need to help the people that have been hurt, but we also need to keep our eye on the goal, and that is the larger economy.
As the 90s began, more bad news followed. In March, ConAgra closed down Eau Claire's armor plant. More than 100 people lost their jobs, and the plant remains vacant today.
It's big business. That's the way I look at it, I guess. It's the only way I can.
It's been a good place to work. Had a good crew, and I enjoyed working here.
Well, I think it's kind of a joke, but it's big business.
Most of the business news in 1990 centered on workers. A rash of strikes hit companies, first at Phoenix Steel, then J&D Manufacturing, and then Johnson Lithographics. A survey showed Eau Claire to have the lowest wages of any city in the state, and strikers made it clear they want more.
And these people have been there a while. They're not like new employees. These people have been there making $3.85, $4.05, and we weren't asking for the world.
$4 just doesn't get it.
I think we'll have to probably, at the end, settle whatever comes.
Today's news of Uniroyal may further shake both the economy and the perception of this area. And economists who once thought the Chippewa Valley may be immune to recession are now not so certain.
I would say that things will be extremely difficult for the next couple years, and then we will begin a slow and steady growth back to the level of employment and about the same mix of jobs that we've had in the past, perhaps improving somewhat.
So here's a loaded question. What about the future?
Let's start with Darrell Wecken. Organized labor has taken a real beating with this announcement of the closing. You've been one of the biggest and strongest unions around, and we've seen the news about the strikes. What about the future of organized labor here?
Well, I think at this point, we think organized labor will always be around and survive. I don't really think this is a point of organized or unorganized at this point. I think our goal will be to work together to accomplish a common goal, and that is, whether we survive or don't survive, is to do what we can to see the people are taken care of.
But without a strong union, can we expect to see good wages instead of those $4 an hour manufacturing jobs?
Well, we certainly feel, although our numbers may be down, that we'll still have an impact, and if our numbers are down, we feel they'll increase in the 90s. I think the 90s is going to be a time of gathering together and a little solidarity, and to help one another out for the betterment of the community and the family person that has to make a living.
Dave, we've heard so much gloom and doom. What do you see in your crystal ball as for manufacturing jobs?
The Eau Claire, the Chippewa Valley is changing identity. As far as a future of jobs, I think there is some optimism. There is optimism here. And we're hoping that we have instant replay of Kenosha. As far as manufacturing jobs, maybe we're going to have to go after smaller employers and not be so dependent on such large employers. I think we're going to be okay, and we're going to have to work together. We're going to have to get everyone working together and have courage and creativity, and it means all the members of the community, a great amount of camaraderie and cohesiveness and compassion, especially for the workers at Uniroyal right now.
Even the small business, though, as you mentioned, is having its problems too. The 13+ workers out there that face a future without a job, where do they see optimism, though? They need to see some optimism to get up out of bed tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there's resources there, and we're going to be bringing those resources in. We're going to be utilizing every state agency we can, and maybe there's some federal agencies. And there's retraining, there's education, there's job placement, and we're going to be pulling it all together.
The City of Eau Claire now has two fairly large pieces of real estate, Armour and Uniroyal. What are we going to do with those? We're going to try and sell them?
Well, hopefully the Armour question will be resolved in the first quarter of '91. Those negotiations have been underway with Armour and ConAgra now for 3 or 4 months, and we're making progress on those, and I would hope that we'd have a resolution there. In terms of the physical plant at the Uniroyal plant, that's something I think that's going to be put on the back burner at the moment. We got people to worry about first, and that really has to come first. Then later we can look at the plant and see what might be done or might not be done there, but to look at that more thoroughly. Again, I'd come back to the theme that it's a time for everybody to pull together to deal with the short-term pain and the difficulty that the individual workers and their families are going to be in, and to keep an eye on the long-term economy and keep making the investments in the economy for the long term. Some of our investments have not yet paid off in the local economy, and I think we have to nurture those investments and work for them so that they do pay off.
Does the City of Eau Claire have its eyes way down the road, even if it is way down the road, on another manufacturing plant, even another employer coming in?
We are looking at a number of different alternatives, and I can't suggest to you that there's a Uniroyal down the road. That's just not the case. Uniroyal plants and plants like Uniroyal are few and far between. The whole economy is changing. We're being told that every day in the national news and the regional news about the economy, that the global interactions have required changes. We're feeling those, and we're moving to a different economy.
But Eau Claire remains confident that it can attract that type of employer.
We remain confident that we can attract good manufacturing jobs and that we can build the local economy with those as a larger part each year.
Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Some final words now. The demise of the Uniroyal-Goodrich Tire Plant is not unlike a death in Eau Claire's family.
It has been a fixture in Eau Claire for nearly 75 years, providing livelihoods to generations of workers. Soon it will be no more. When we hear news like this, indeed when we report it, it is all too easy to sanitize it by boiling it down to numbers and reasons for what's happened.
But the real impact, the real story here is the people whose lives now are forever changed. None of us has to look very far to see someone we know affected by today's announcement, a friend, a neighbor, a relative.
So in truth, are we all in this together? Certainly more, or certainly some more and some less. And should we keep in mind that this may be a painful step into the future? Eau Claire once depended on lumber much more than we do now on rubber, and like the end of the lumber era, the community can recover from this.
And let us not forget those who now face an uncertain future in our thoughts during the difficult days that lie ahead. And remember to lend a helping hand where we can. This will not be an easy time for anyone. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.